So you're saying you have a show right after this?
I literally have a show after this. I'm going to be featuring at Bananas.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doing somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes
Nice.
when I get there. I literally will probably just like run on stage and be like, hey! And yeah, no, it'll be a good time. I love Bananas. Have you performed there?
No, I've never been to... Wait, that's in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rutherford.
Okay.
It's a great venue. They're wonderful. They've been very generous to me because they've allowed me to like get up on the stage and just bomb, and then they still hire me back. So they really are great, and they were a place where I definitely learned a lot about hosting because that's how they first hire you.
Oh, nice.
And it took me a few times to really go, oh, this is how you. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And they've always been very kind and nice to me.
What was the biggest thing that you like got with hosting? Is there anything that like stuck out, or is it just like, because I do think it is kind of a feel thing as well. Like for me, it was kind of the realization like, oh, my job is to just like be chill. Like ensure the audience they're going to have a good time. That's what my job is. I
think as a host, you have to understand that it is so not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
No.
You basically treat it as you are the host of a party and you welcome in all of these amazing guests. And
drinks
you're
are over
like,
here, snacks are over here, your waiter will be coming around.
And you're like, oh my god, have you met Steven? Steven is so funny. You weren't gonna love Steven. Oh my god, I gotta introduce you to Steven. Come here, Steven, come here. Oh my god, guys, you meet Steven.
Yeah.
That's what your job is to get everyone hyped up. You are the ultimate hype man.
That is a great way to think about it.
And that is how, when that eventually really clicked, and that went like, oh shit, I mean, obviously you want to be funny, you want to crack jokes as a stand-up comedian, but it's more important that you get the audience comfortable and warmed up and set up, because if you can see that the other comedians are doing really, really well and the audience is super warmed up for them, that is your job. That is your job number one.
Yeah.
Then, and yes, being funny is like a natural part of it, but it's funky as a host.
Well, so how much do you change up like your normal set when you're hosting? Because you headlined our show, me and Chris Ryder, who's
and
been
I
on
did
this,
Matt
like,
on that.
No, you were good. You were great. It was a weird audience. No, you did a great job.
No, that wasn't Matt. That wasn't Matt. I was just like, I could never feel their rhythm. I think I was in a funky mood or something.
It's all good.
But I was Matt.
I thought you did good. But like,
thank you.
when you're hosting, like, how much do you change up your set? Because like, do you talk about the donor conception stuff in your set at all, or it's
if I'm hosting, sometimes.
Okay.
Usually when I'm hosting, it's almost always all crowd work.
Yeah.
It's almost all crowd work that I do.
Like crowd work and like silly shit. Or like if I know there's a really dark comic coming on, I'll like do a little bit, not to like step on it, but just be like, hey, this might happen later, wink wink, it's going to. Like
typically I actually tack more into my divorce set because that's a lot more universal, and I feel like as a host that's a better thing to do.
Yeah.
That's much more easier to grasp onto, because when I do the donor conception stuff, like I need a lot more like the audience typically, there's a lot more like trust that they need to like kind of follow me on this journey with. But so divorce is easy. Like everyone gets divorced.
I've decided I don't think there's a single person who either hasn't been divorced themselves or has a family member that is like, everyone's got one of the two.
And even if you're married and you're happily married, you still get it because you have had a divorce fantasy.
Yeah.
Everyone has had a divorce fantasy.
Oh no!
No, and I tell this. I tell all married people. I'm like, I promise you, your partner has had a fantasy about divorcing you. They have planned their outfit. They know their hairstyle. They know exactly what they would say to you.
Oh, no.
I promise, that's fucking true.
Yeah.
Like, never ever stop. Like, don't ever take your partner for granted.
Yeah.
I promise you, because they have had that little fantasy of leaving you. I promise.
Like, everyone's done that in relationships, too. Mm-hmm. Like, anyone's just like, I've never thought about breaking up with my significant other. Shut up. Yes, you have.
You could be
you could bury that as
ever, but you still haven't.
Yeah. Even if you, like, bury that deep down, it's coming out in your subconscious in your dreams. Like, there's no possible way you can escape that completely.
Oh, even if you're just, like, going on a dark little tangent in your head, and you're just like, I wonder what happened if I completely upheave my entire life right now.
killed
She's
him.
like,
What happened if I killed him?
Oh yeah, no, you absolutely have. Everybody's had those like little intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I do think even happily married couples still get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the donor conception stuff, that, like, normally when I'm hosting higher level concepts, stuff that people aren't as familiar with, if I'm going to go out there with an idea, it's like, I'm not going to do it while hosting. That's not my job to, like, try to get them to come along this weird little pathway that I've done. But, like, well, I guess if it's a longer hosting set, right? Like,
if it's a longer hosting set, I would say if I have like 15 minutes as a host, I can go into it and I can feel it, because if I've done like really good crowd work up top and they're really feeling me and we're having a good time, then I feel safe going into it and it's going to be okay. But if I'm doing like an 8-minute set, absolutely not.
No, that's
absolutely not. No.
It's not.
We're doing easy shit. We're doing nice, easy little dick jokes that we can all get behind. We can all understand.
Not hard dick jokes, easy dick jokes.
Easy dick jokes. All right, we're not ready for the big fucking dildo that is donor conception. Like that's just not something we're warmed up to. It requires a little bit of lube.
That's like really appropriate. The donor conception is a dildo.
It's a giant fucking dildo.
Yeah. So like, how much does it differ? So I've seen like a bunch of your videos on TikTok, because we're friends on TikTok, and TikTok is like, oh, your friend's putting out a lot of videos, and I was like, all right, yeah, this is interesting and shit. How much does that change between like the TikTok and the set? I'm assuming the set's pretty boiled down, and then like, what are we missing in the TikTok? Which like, I'll put your TikTok in the show notes so people can go watch that. But like, give me the breadth of the situation, like your history, what you're doing right now, and like what you're trying to do.
My stand-up is much more about my personal story, and my TikTok is more about donor conception and the infertility industry in general.
Okay.
That's really the difference of the two. Like, with my stand-up, it's my fucking story. I'm going to tell you, like, what has happened to me, my emotional journey with it. And there is, like, so much more about it that, like, I am continuing to write. Like, I have, like, my tight little 5 about it.
Sure.
But I have a lot more about it that I'm trying to really write into it a little bit more, certainly since that's, like, what I'm becoming a little bit known for.
Sure.
But no, the what I put out online in terms of my TikTok is other people's stories. I talk about the laws. I talk about crazy unethical practices, specific clinics.
I saw a lot of those videos where like, and we can get into that.
Fuck yes.
Later.
Let's name names.
Yeah, right?
Oh, I'm 100% willing to throw every fucking clinic under the bus. I am happy to name fucking names.
We are here for that on this podcast.
Let us spill this tea.
Excellent teaser. Excellent teaser. So they keep listening to the podcast. So what is your history with donor? Because you're a donor conceived individual. Yeah, I was going to ask.
You can call me a sperm.
Okay.
I would say if you talk to other donor conceived people, call them donor conceived people, donor conceived individuals.
Okay.
Me personally, I as a stand up comic, because our whole thing is like, let's go for the joke. Yeah. Sperm donor baby is just a funnier word.
That's a great one.
It's a fucking funny word. So call me a sperm donor baby. I'm perfectly fine with that. Because it's funny. But yes, if you want to try and be respectful to other donor conceived people, please call them a donor conceived individual. So I am a donor conceived individual. I was conceived in 1987. I was born in 1988. And the infertility industry is extremely unregulated. And it was very unregulated. It's very unregulated now. And when I was made, it was like it was the most like amorphous amoeba branch of medicine. Like it
makes sense, because like men are just throwing it everywhere anyway. But it's like, why would that one be regulated?
Oh, it's sperm. You can't. Sperm left and right. Yeah. You can't touch a doorknob without touching sperm.
Exactly.
It's very crusty and gross.
They were like, this is why we need clinics. So most people are getting donor conceived just based off the street. They're like just walking into it. We need some place where they can go.
Yeah, let's. I tell you what, we're gross normally. Let's get paid to be gross.
Exactly.
That's what it was.
I think we're all for that.
And it was. So I was. My parents were struggling with. Both of my parents struggled with infertility, but my mom's issues could get fixed. My dad's issues could not.
Okay.
So my mom had 3 years of hormone therapy. and 2 surgeries. And she
Wow.
had a full reconstruction in 1987. And then she was able and ready to get pregnant. And she was, hold on one second. What's the term? Ovulating on a holiday weekend. But the bank was closed, and the clinic was closed because it was a holiday.
I was like, the bank, like, why did she couldn't like get cash out for the vial of sperm? Like, what's going on? All right, sorry, I lost track there. It's been a long day.
The clinic was closed. It was the Jewish New Year, and so they were like, sorry, clinic is closed. And now this is the first time she's ovulating after the surgery. She's now been on hormone therapy for 3 years. It's a fucking wild ride being on hormone therapy. Yeah. It can get painful at times, like it's horrible. And she was like, are you fucking shitting me? Like, can we please figure something out? Yeah. Can I come into the clinic? Anything, please. And now my parents were the doctor's first patients ever.
Wow.
First clinics patients ever. Like, my parents were like the first people to step inside this place. What
a weird thing to be a guinea pig for.
I don't like
maybe go to a more established establishment.
It's not the thing you want to be first at.
No.
I don't feel good about it.
I don't want to be the first one on a roller coaster. I don't want to be the first one at a skydiving company. I don't want to be the first one at a donor conception clinic. The
fact that I'm like data is not a nice feeling.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to be a statistic.
I don't enjoy it. I remember like when my mom told me that, I was like, so I could explode at any second, and that's just like research.
Right. They hard coded it into your DNA. It's like at this time you're done.
Done. All right, we got that guinea. All right, that guinea pig. We got everything we need from. Yep. All right, cool. So the doctor decided. So he's very young at this point, and he decided, okay, I have this idea. This is what we're gonna do. My mom, we're going to get the donor to drop the sperm off at a hotel concierge. My mom, you go pick it up and then go inseminate it with your husband.
Hilarious.
So I'm black market.
We're getting it done. Yeah. We're getting it done. I was like...
We're getting it done. I love being black market sperm.
Yeah.
And my mom tries to be so sweet with it. Like, she tells me, like, Laura, I picked up the sperm. I picked it up. I kept it warm to me because it was fresh sperm.
Sure, yeah.
And I whisked off to your father's office, and that's where you were made. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. It's like the clinic was closed because it was a Jewish holiday weekend, but Dad was fucking working.
Yeah, right?
Dad was fucking working. So, and my mom's like, yeah,
Someone's got to pay for the sperm.
Someone's got to pay for the sperm. So apparently he inseminated her, and she was on his couch, and she just like kept her legs up, and as he continued with his spreadsheet.
I mean, I knew things happened in the offices of like corporate buildings in the 80s, but I never would have guessed that sperm donation conception would have been one of those things. Although I should have, right? I've seen Mad Men. It's only one step further than what they did. Well, and my
dad was in advertising too. So I asked him, I was like, Dad, was Mad Men accurate? And he was in the 80s, and he was like, yeah, just add more cocaine, and that was what it was.
Yeah.
Like, my dad was an account guy, so he was like Roger. And he was like, I didn't have a desk, I had a bar.
Right.
I was like, you are a fucking animal, man.
Damn it. And then now all these fucking nerds in tech are like, we want kombucha. It's like, can we go back to the good old days? Like, what are we doing? Why are we drinking kombucha? We could have lines of cocaine in this office. Anyway.
We are a pro-cocaine
Sorry, the soapbox is yours.
Okay,
officially, because my parents listen, we are not a cocaine friend.
We are not a cocaine podcast.
It was for the joke.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, soapbox is yours again.
You have a very well-behaved son. Well-behaved.
I have a nice apartment. If I had a cocaine habit, I would not be able to do this.
It's a very lovely apartment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very nice. Great location. So then I was made, and I always tell my parents, I'm like, you got what you fucking deserved, because like obviously like after like if that's the way that you made it. Yes. Did you think after that was the way you made me, you were going to get a lawyer? You were going to get a doctor?
Of course not.
You're going to get a fucking cop. You're going to get a clown.
Yeah.
This is your fault, guys. This is your fault.
You came out of the womb with a red nose on.
I did. Sorry. That's your... I take no responsibility for my choices. This is you guys. Mm-mm.
No, 100% nature over nurture going on over here.
Now...
See, your mom has to be like nice about this, because she tried so hard to have to like get this to work, like years of pain, and you're like, you did it what way? Like she has to be like, it's I don't know.
My mother is a ray of fucking sunshine.
Yeah.
She is the sweetest human being. She's a freaking doll, and she tells this so sweetly. Like she was just like, no, Laura, I picked up the sperm and I kept it, and I love, and I'm just like, Mom, do you hear that this isn't a and I'm always like, Mom, this isn't a conception story. This is an origin story.
Yeah. And
this isn't an origin story for like the Justice League. This is like the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
Like
if she dropped the sperm in a vat of acid before that happened, like
then I would
complete supervillain. She'd be the Joker.
100%. Like this is. I am only one vat of acid away from becoming the Joker. I'm already a comic. Like, we're already half. Like,
I was
going to
say, I think most comics could fit into that. Mm-hmm. I like to think of myself as chaotic good right now, but that could flip pretty easily.
Oh, we're like one bad day. We're only a few bad sets from becoming the Joker.
Yeah, I'll take it. Okay, so that's a wild. So, like, when did you... It's like my younger brother is adopted. And so it's kind of like a whole thing of like, when do we tell him? How do we tell him? Like, how does that go along with his, like, how he sees himself? What was that like for you? Like, when did you find out from your parents that you were donor conceived? Yeah. Like, what was that conversation like?
I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And it was the best conversation ever because, like, I was in the car with my dad because that's where all dads have important conversations. Yeah. Because they don't have to look at you.
You don't have to make eye contact.
Don't have to make eye contact.
Goddamn right. The most important conversations are in the car.
Yeah, and they're totally, like, dadding. Yep. And it's fabulous, and I love it.
The kid can look out the window, and the dad looks straight.
Yeah, no, that's where dads are at, like, their finest is in the car. That's safe for them.
Yep.
You have to stay in your seat.
God damn.
You can't touch me. I don't have to look at you. I have a full-on excuse not to look at you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the conversation has a specific time period.
It
because
does.
As soon as we get to our location, conversation's done.
You ever had them take an extra lap while they were doing that? That's terrifying. You're like, oh, this conversation's not over? I'm sorry, I thought we had an out. Once we got home, we do not live on this other block, Father.
It is within their control because if they want it to end early, they will end early. But no, we got to talk about it a little more. We're going to do that a little. We're going to do that little loop. We're going to go a long way.
That totally depended on how much sass and sarcasm I gave my dad.
Yes.
If it was like if I just accepted what he was saying, it was a short conversation. But that wasn't my thing growing up.
Well. My dad, so how he decided, in my dad's lovely, but in his wisdom, I think he underestimated how much sass I had in my little 14-year-old body.
Sure.
And he was like, so, Laura, do you know how babies are made? And I just like,
what am I?
And I just saw a joke opportunity, and I was like, yeah, Dad, I've seen Skinamax.
There you go.
And then my dad, though, volleyed and was just like, well, kiddo, you know what sperm donation is? Yeah. And that was just like, and I remember for me...
You got too cheeky. He was able to just get right to the point.
Oh, it was like that heckler who hands in your ass, and you're just like, oh, shit, the heckler's funnier than me.
He knew it was coming, yeah.
Oh, he had that ready to go.
Yes, he did.
And I remember it was a sensation where it was just suddenly like this, like, kind of like thing where it like I swear I saw the Matrix because I knew something was up. Like I look like a carbon copy of my mom. If you saw my mom, I look exactly like her. My dad, we both have white skin. That's it. That's all we have in common. Everything else is different. There is nothing about us that looks familiar. And I always knew something was up. I was like, was I switched at birth? Did something happen? Like, because it just was I stolen by aliens? I don't know, just something. But I could tell something wasn't right, and I could like smell it.
Did Mom sleep with the mailman?
Like, what the fuck happened? And as soon as it made so much sense. I was honestly, it was like really validating to hear because I was just like, this was this feeling that I've been feeling my whole life. Which is what I will say about like your brother. There's a good chance he instinctually already knows something's up.
Yeah. Well, he knows. So he knows now.
Oh, he knows. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's 15. His cousin was also adopted, and my my half brother who was adopted is like white. And he actually kind of looks like me and my other brothers. So like we would kind of joke when he was younger. It's like we might not need to fucking tell him, but like but his cousin was also adopted because he was from Guatemala. So obviously he figured out pretty quick like I am a different color than my parents, and then through that way, like the idea of being adopted wasn't foreign to my brother.
Okay, so it was accessible.
Yeah, so they were. I'm sure it was still like a pretty significant moment in his life, but it wasn't like, you know, he had been around, he had family members that were already that way, so he could kind of think about it in that sense.
Okay. Well, because I was about to say, like, a lot of donor-conceived people, and this isn't everybody, so we're not all a monolith, but so many donor-conceived people instinctually knew something was up. They absolutely knew. There's I've only spoken to a handful of donor-conceived people who were genuinely shocked when they found out. Okay. Most were like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. They were like, I fucking knew something was
just
wrong.
Like a gut feeling.
It's incredible. Like, it's one of those things where both are true. DNA and genetics matter, and they don't matter. It's like both absolutely are true. Like, there is something, because there is like genetic mirroring and seeing yourself in somebody else that absolutely matters. And when you don't have that, you can sense something's off.
Interesting. Okay.
And also, sometimes family members who you are not genetically related to treat you like shit, and they like...
Well, okay.
That also...
Sometimes family members that you are genetically related to treat you like shit, but I'm sure it's a different type of being treated like shit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely exists, and I mean, there are so many donor-conceived people who absolutely talk about, like, not to get too dark on, who talk about, like, the amount of abuse they took from their non-genetic family. But then the genetic members were treated very differently, and they could always sense, like, why am I the odd man out?
No, let's talk about it. This podcast is not afraid to get dark.
Yes,
I mean, like,
dark.
what are some stories that you've heard, and like, is it anywhere close? I think American society right now is kind of wrapping its head around like how horrible it was to be like homosexual in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Is it like kind of the same thing, or is it like obviously for different reasons, but it's just kind of like being othered by your family? Am I thinking about that the right way?
Well, unfortunately, I will say, and this is something for people just to know, who do watch my TikTok, my Instagram stuff, the worst stories I have never shared publicly because I've not been allowed to. And there are some stories that will become publicly known soon, because I am working with certain networks to get certain stories published. So the worst of the worst I can't talk about yet. But I will say it gets as dark as you think it does.
Yeah.
And there are, I mean, the amount of donor-conceived people who are physically, sexually, mentally abused by their non-biological parent because they are their non-biological parents. So that is something that, like, well, you know, they're not my, you know, biological kid, so I'm allowed to do that.
I mean, there is something hardwired, especially for men to like provide for their offspring, and it's like genetically encoded. And I would assume when that's not there are some men that like just can't wrap their head around this child that they know technically isn't their DNA.
Well, and it's something that we have found, like, statistically, like, adopted kids are more likely to be abused, and in the same way that, like, donor-conceived people, very high chance that they're going to be abused as well.
Okay.
And it fucking sucks, and it's an absolute horrible reality. But specifically when it comes to donor conception, I mean, there are donor-conceived... I'm trying to think of what are the stories that I can share right now. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people that I know whose doctor switched out the chosen sperm donor for their own. Yeah,
that was like a national story. It was like there was a documentary that came
out,
like 2 years ago or something. I think that's what... Oh, okay.
It was this past May.
Wow, my sense of time is way off.
We're still in quarantine mindset. It still doesn't
I don't think that's ever going away. I think my sense of time is just completely depleted.
Now, I will say, so when Our Father came out, which was this past May, so May 2022, in the documentary, it says that due to DNA testing, they have also caught 44 more doctors who have done the same thing within the United States. Now, since that came out, On record, we have found another 6 more doctors who have done the same thing.
Jesus.
Now, I can't give you the number, but privately, people have told me their doctor also did it as well. They just are not willing. They just are not comfortable coming forward.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who are just, they're very scared to come forward.
What is that ratio? Like, so because I don't even have a concept of how many of these doctors there are out there.
So the ratio is tough. So there are, hang on one second. Sorry. So we have like 51, we know as of, I'm going to say like October 2022, we know that at least 50 doctors, we have on record now 50 doctors who switched out the chosen donor DNA for their own within the United States. And we found that through like Ancestry and 23andMe. That's how they were able to track it.
Wow, what a way to go down. Like these doctors, no way they saw this coming, right?
Only 7% of the United States population has taken one of those commercial DNA tests. And we've already found 50 at only 7% of the population.
So what percentage of donor-conceived people have taken one of those, though?
We have no idea.
Okay.
There is
because I would assume like those people would be more inclined to take one because they're more curious about their.
Well, so many donor-conceived people don't know they're donor-conceived.
Fair. That's a good point.
So many people
just got that feeling in their stomach.
Oh yeah, no,
they don't know for sure.
So many people. I would tell anybody saying if your parents told you that you were IVF, if your parents had told you that like they struggled with infertility, go get your DNA tested immediately. Yeah. Because those are usually the telltale signs that there's actually a very higher chance that you actually might be donor conceived. They just haven't told you that piece of it yet.
Interesting.
But usually they start, or what they're comfortable telling you is you were IVF or they were struggling with infertility. So if your parents have done that, I would go get your DNA tested immediately. That's one. But yeah, we have no idea how many donor conceived people exist. There's no national registry. There is a national registry in terms of like how many IVF babies there are. Sure. But donor conceived, we have no idea.
That seems like something to keep track of.
It's a huge, but they don't want to because of how many donor conceptions that have been done, like completely horribly, like mine, or how many of our records have been destroyed. For example, for me, I called the doctor who inseminated me when I was 19 years old because I wanted my medical history. Okay. And I was like, is there any way for me to find my medical history, know who my donor is, a donor number, like literally anything? And he said, so I don't know who your donor was because it was completely anonymous. It came from a clinic that would have been either a med student or a doctor, but that clinic has burned to the ground along with all your files. Jesus. So I can't. And if you talk to donor-conceived people, like if you talk to 20 donor-conceived people, I promise you half of them are going to tell you that their clinic said that their papers were destroyed. That is 50%. I would guarantee you.
So do you think that's intentional?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It was not. Completely. It's not just like random. I'm sure they try to brush it off as like, oh yep, electrical fire. Like, I don't know what happened.
Because the papers that we do have on donor profiles, the amount of like discrepancies that we can immediately find are huge. There are things that, like, there's a donor conceived person I know, has their donor profile, lists, like, all the medical shit. She found her donor, showed him the donor profile, and he said, I didn't write any of this.
Wow.
So the fact that we can fact check all this shit now because of Ancestry and 23andMe.
Sure.
Yeah, we can find the amount of discrepancies. There's a pod of 100 donor conceived people that I found who even said that parents got different donor profiles. Like, not all the donor profiles are the same. Like, they have different pieces to them. Okay, so I know what it is just from watching your TikToks. Could you define what a pod is? Sure. A pod is what we say is like is a group of donor conceived half siblings. Okay, so all from the same father. Yeah, or egg donor. Oh, okay. It could be both a sperm donor or an egg donor. Gotcha. Okay, so a pod would be like they are all genetically related. They are all half 50%. Siblings. Yeah, all half siblings. Got it. Okay, so you're saying that this pod of 100. It's over 100, but we'll say 100. Yeah. They all
tried to get their records and they were all different, even though they know they're all from the same donor?
Yeah, there were differences in the profile. Like, they were not all unanimous.
How does that does it like come from one donor and then like each clinic edits it? Like, how do these discrepancies come about?
It's from one clinic, and the clinics lie a lot. And there's nothing to stop them. I mean, it's one of the things that I always talk about, that it is only illegal in now 39. We just got it passed in other states, but it is only illegal in 39 states for a doctor to switch out the chosen sperm for his own.
Wow.
And that's not illegal.
So like 11 states that is legal.
11 states it is illegal.
Oh.
Sorry, did I fuck that up?
I don't know. I might have.
Okay.
Either way, that's crazy.
It is only illegal.
It's crazy it's not 50.
It is. Well, so it is only illegal in 11 states for a doctor to switch out the chosen sperm for his own. Or for any other donor that they did not consent to. That's only illegal in 11 states. It just got passed in Ohio. I don't think the governor has signed it yet, but it has passed like the House and the Senate in Ohio, so that's why I'm saying 39, but it's really 40.
Okay.
Because they could still do it in Ohio right now. But we're very excited about Ohio. But
do we think that's gonna, like, I know it's obviously good. Do we think that's going to make a difference? Like, do we think that because it's illegal, it's now going to stop these people, or are these people, like, the way, so my background's in psychology, and the way that I'm picturing these people is like psychopathic. Like, that to me is a psychopathic, narcissistic thing to do. I'm like, would a strict law actually stop these people from doing it?
I absolutely think it will.
Okay.
I think actually having a legit consequence, because right now there isn't really a consequence. They can really get away with it. They can be like, there is, and you can read all about it. If you Google New York Post Rochester infertility scandal, you're going to see an article about a man named Dr. Wortman. He has, I think, now he and so he was an infertility, he was an OBGYN, and he switched out the chosen donor DNA for his own in at least, I think it's 17 kids at this point. I don't know if it's more, but 17. He's been fully caught, and he is still in practice in New York and Rochester.
Jeez.
Still in practice. Yeah. And again, New York posted a full article about it.
Right.
He's still in practice. Please go read it. I encourage everyone to go read it. It's fucking insane.
Okay. Would the laws, like, let's say New York passes it, I don't know, like, would they be able to retroactively go after these people?
Oh, I don't know.
And it's like,
I doubt it. I doubt retroactively we can. I think it would be anything that is, like, now discovered, or at least moving forward. I think it's really moving forward.
Yeah.
After legal. And, but I mean, like, the clinics are trying really hard to fight against it, because now what they're making parents do now, and we have contracts to prove it, they're telling parents that if you let your child get their DNA tested through Ancestry or 23andMe, that they have the right to sue them.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're trying very, very hard for parents to keep the families in the dark.
And parents are going with it.
They are going with it because they don't understand how because the parents are trusting the clinics at their word. They don't understand how unregulated the clinics are.
Yeah.
Because the clinics, I mean, again, there isn't a cap on how many babies can come from one donor.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the United States. Colorado recently passed, there's a 25 family limit, but that law will not go into effect for at least another few years. Wow. So again, nowhere in the United States. You are not required anywhere in the United States to do genetic testing.
Yeah.
The only thing that the FDA requires the clinics to do is to do an STD test. That's it.
Okay. Well, that's good, at least.
That's a start. I mean,
what a low bar.
What a fucking low bar. What a goddamn low bar it is. And they're not, they don't have to pass on imperative health information.
Yeah.
So, like, there's donors that I know who have had heart attacks, whose family members got, like, this really rare form of cancer, or who have died from a genetic illness, and they call the clinic and they're like, you need to tell all the donor conceived people immediately, get my children echoes, EKGs, blood tests, they need to start getting mammograms immediately, like whatever it is, and the clinic just goes, no, No.
Yeah.
No. So, parents are trusting these clinics at their word.
Yeah.
Now, typically what we have found is parents, like, once their child is born and once they start showing, like, signs, like, typically we've noticed a lot of parents, like, by the time the child is, like, 3 or 4 years old and, like, medical issues have started happening, parents are starting to go, like, wait, what's happening? Something's wrong. And then they start connecting with other recipient parents from that same donor, and they're going, wait, are you going through this? I'm going through this. Please, are you going through? I'm going through this. Wait, how many siblings does my kid have?
Right.
And then they start putting it together, but at that point, yeah, no, it's a really fucking shit situation. I'm on the phone right now. I've been talking to a recipient parent who has a 1-year-old who's now, like, just sort of discovering all of this, and it's heartbreaking because, like, I have to tell her, like, yeah, it's that bad. Yeah. It's that bad. I'm so sorry. It is that bad. And it's horrible to talk to and tell recipient parents because they feel so guilty because they're like, I didn't know. They lied to me. These are doctors. Like, I signed it. And it's like, I understand and I am sorry. But yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible what everybody in the situation has to go through.
Yeah. I mean, and that is kind of what I wanted to touch on next is, like, why is this so horrible? But aside from the, like,
capitalism.
No. Not like why did it end up this way? Although I think that is an interesting way to put it. But, like, more stuff about, like, the medical histories and stuff. Like, what are, aside from the, like, overall this is fucked up. Because the other thing that I was thinking of is, like, yeah, what if someone has, you know, a pot of 100 and you think about, like, a small state, like, let's say, like, Vermont, Wyoming, New Hampshire, whatever, like, there's a chance if the pot is big enough that these people are going to end up hooking up and, like, having children together. Happened. Wow. We know donor conceived siblings who have dated. We know donor conceived people who have dated the same person. Yikes.
Yeah, no, it's happened. Because typically donor conceived people, like, are around the same age.
Yeah.
And they're typically within the same area. No, so what ends up happening is no one is supposed to have 100 kids.
No.
That's not what's supposed to happen. Now,
Genghis Khan's the only one.
Genghis Khan's the only one. Now, obviously, like, there's not a single human being who isn't a carrier for some genetic illness.
Sure.
We all have problems, but you're not supposed to have 100 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you have 100 kids and you start fucking with the genetic you start screwing with the diversity of the genetic pool.
The gene pool, yeah.
It starts getting fucked over. And what we have found also, on top of which, there's a lot of horrific donors out there who donate and lie about having genetic illnesses, who they donate knowing they have genetic illnesses. So we have there's a donor who donated to 2 different clinics, knowingly having a rare blood disorder, has 70 kids now.
Wow.
So he knowingly did that.
Jesus.
Now.
Didn't they, so I guess...
And this was recent.
How does he get to that point? Like, he knew that and the clinic was like, nah, we don't really care. As long as you don't have any STDs, we're fine.
So their clinics are not required to verify medical history.
Wow.
So no clinic in the United States has to verify medical history. So the donors go in and they fill out whatever they want to fill out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
Because the incentive is money. And it's good money.
Because, you get paid for sperm donation.
You can make...
Especially, like, if you are certain quality traits, right? Like, I've heard
blonde,
if you're Jewish,
white,
if you're
blue-eyed.
tall, if you got blue eyes.
If you are a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes with some sports capability and a degree, oh my God, you're making bank.
What am I doing in my day job?
Dude, you kidding me? They would sell you like fucking crazy.
Yes. All right.
Oh my God, they would sell you like
pay my way through comedy. This is gonna be great.
No, they would absolutely, especially because you're tall.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do they
100%?
So when you're actually, let's say, because I want to stick with the bad stuff, and then we can get into like how people choose who their donor is going to be. But like, so sorry, like the downside of these gene pools getting fucked up is like when they don't have the full medical history, you're ending up with what, like 150 people that all have the same blood disorder, like
who have no access to an updated medical history, who have no access to a correct medical history, don't have access to know who their genetic family is, so they can't even get updated, so they are not getting checked, treated properly, so they fucking suffer. They suffer tremendously. They die. There's donor conceived people who have died because of this. It's ridiculous and it's horrible. And it's just such an unneeded thing. Now, and the parents had no idea that it's so we have this like breeding of genetic illnesses that we have no treatments for.
Yeah. So, okay. Is there one that's like more common than others, or is it just like all over the place? Like there's no way to figure out. It's like, I guess no, because you can't really narrow down like who the people are that are the sperm donors, right?
From my research, there hasn't been like at least for me, I haven't been able to go like, oh, this is the biggest genetic illness that has been like I've not been able to like find that.
Sure.
But I swear, like the amount of like that pod that I was just mentioning, that 100, they are medically suffering tremendously.
Sure.
I remember I spoke to one girl who she has a cyst growing on her spine. And she's not going to be able to like walk when she gets older. Like that's when I think she said like 60, put an asterisk on that because I'm not 100% sure. And I asked her, I was like, am I allowed to, because I was interviewing a lot of the siblings, and I was like, am I allowed to ask your other siblings if they have issue with cysts as well? And she was like, absolutely. The next sibling I talked to, I was like, by the way, do you have any issues with cysts? And she was like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And I was like, you have issues with cysts? She was like, yeah, they grow on my thyroid all the time. How'd you know? And the amount of autoimmune disorders that they all have, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a lot of that pod suffers from a ton of mental illness that would be classified as genetic.
Wow.
It's just it's big shit that could have been much more easily treated if they knew about it when they were much younger.
Right.
Or could be treated and diagnosed much sooner if there was a family history. Mm-hmm. Because then the doctors would go, oh, great, it's this. Let's test for that immediately. Because people really don't understand how you test for, like, you genetically test for things.
Sure.
Because, like, people, whenever I talk about this, people are like, oh, we'll just do a 23andMe test. And I'm like, 23andMe is not a medical grade test.
Right. You're spitting into a vial.
I'm like, what the you think you're gonna, like, no.
You can barely do STD tests with your spit. It's like
it's not a medical grade test. You have to go to, like, a geneticist.
Right.
But even geneticists will tell you, my work is only going to tell you half of the information.
Yeah.
You need the other half of a oral family medical history to tell you actually, like, things that I should be looking for. It can tell you actually how much of a risk something is. Stuff like that. Like, it's just, people don't really understand. And then I also get people telling me, like, well, I don't know my family's medical history, like, fucking sucks, but, like, get over it. And I'm like, well, do you know both of your biological parents? And they go, yeah. Like, so you would know if your mom gets breast cancer or your dad dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 50. That's medical history right there. That's what we're talking about. I'm not saying that you need to know that, like, your great aunt was allergic to oranges.
Yeah.
There are donor
conceived. That'd be nice to know.
That'd be nice to know. But there are donor conceived people whose donors had heart failure at the age of 30 and don't know that.
Yeah. That is a bit of an issue, to
it's a bit of a
say
fucking
lightly.
issue. It's you create these little ticking time bombs.
So legislating it, like, what do you want to see from legislators around? So, like, baseline open information, right? Like, so, like, for instance, I have breast cancer that runs in my family. It's not on Like, we don't think it's on my side, but like, it's been through enough of us that we're like, yeah, you know what? Like, keep an eye out for it. Like, should that theoretically disqualify me from donating sperm if I wanted to?
No,
okay,
I don't think
so
it should.
that would be too far.
Here would be my thing, and this would be something where, please remember, I have a theater degree and I'm a comedian, so
yeah, but your dad was either a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah, he was. Yes, he was a doctor. So I would say, like, I would definitely, like, I would say I'm sure this is something for where, like, people on ethics committees, historians, doctors, geneticists, they need to be the ones who are really having this conversation.
Okay.
But there is a worry about, like, eugenics. And so we really don't want to, because this is where we really are on that line, because we don't want to get eugenicsy.
Sure.
That's not what we want to do.
No. That is a fine line to walk.
It's a fine line to walk. Now, as of right now, donor conception is legalized eugenics.
Okay.
We don't want that. So we want to undo that. So one, we need an anti-discrimination bill against donors.
Okay.
For donors, sorry. We need an anti-discrimination bill to protect donors, because right now it's a bunch of random people in a back room deciding who and who isn't allowed to procreate. And there's a reason, if you line up all donor conceived people, we all look alike, and oh boy, we happen to be white.
Yeah.
All of us.
Right.
And if you look at the big pods, it's all white donors. Weird how that happens.
Right.
Fucking strange. And if you are trying, like, if you're a family who is like a BIPOC family and you're trying to find like a BIPOC donor, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to find a BIPOC donor. You might not even be able to find one because of how hard they're able to find. And that is because the industry has been discriminating against them for decades. So one, there needs to be an anti-discrimination law. That's one. Now, I don't give a shit what kind of genetic illnesses run in your family that you have. I don't give a fuck what they have. You just have to be able to hand in a verified medical history, have everything there, and give the parents informed consent.
Okay.
That's it. Parents, like, people think that, like, oh, well, all parents want a 6'5", Henry Cavill-esque donor. I mean, who wouldn't? But that's not the case. It's very interesting things that the parents look for in terms of donors. And it's not always what you would think. Most of the time, they try and find donors that match the non-genetic parent.
Sure.
So that's not, typically going to be Henry Cavill.
Right.
So you would be surprised as to what parents go for. So as long as that information is available, and it's honest, then cool. Then that's what we need. That alone is a game-changing thing. So that is one thing. And then the other piece that we need, and this would probably be the most stigmatized-esque piece, would be we have to ban anonymity. Anonymity has to go away.
That would really limit the donor market, right? But you're saying that would be a good thing. No.
It wouldn't. It absolutely would not. So this is something, and I know I'm going to have people arguing with me about this one.
Great. Let us know in the comments. It'll boost this on the algorithm.
And I'm going to tell you, fuck off. I'm right.
Laura will tell you to fuck off, and we'll get all the views.
Okay. So right now, we are having a massive... okay, hold on. God, there's so many pieces to this. So right now, you're going to tell me that, like, well, Laura, so there are multiple countries who all banned anonymity.
Yep.
All banned it. People still donate.
Okay.
You have the UK, Germany, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Netherlands, and Norway.
Okay.
They all banned anonymity. People still donate. Now people are going to go, but Laura, there's a huge donor shortage right now. There's not enough donors. No, it's the same amount of people have been donating throughout all time. More people are going to the infertility industry right now. So the supply is the same. The demands have grown. So no, it's not stopped people from donating. And they even did research in Victoria, Australia, and they found that, and this information is readily available, that when they took away anonymity and they made it completely open donation, the donors increased by 40%.
Wow.
Yeah, because I do think a lot of people don't like most don't, like, a lot of people, the reason they don't donate is because of anonymity. They don't like it. They feel like that's wrong. They feel like they are like, look, I want to be a donor. I want to help this out. But the idea that I am completely cut off from my genetic child for their entire life, I don't like that. I don't feel comfortable donating.
Yeah.
A lot more people feel comfortable donating with the anonymity being gone.
So are there rules in those countries around like contact or something as they like, is it up to the donor to decide if he wants to contact, like
it's up to the donor conceived child?
Oh, okay. So in these countries, essentially you're signing up and saying like, yes, these like, let's put a cap at 25 because that's what you said Colorado just did. Like these 25 families, people.
It's much
can
smaller
do that.
in other countries.
Okay.
Like in the UK, it's 10 families. I know in New Zealand it's even smaller. But yeah, so it's a much significantly smaller. It's not 100 kids in the least bit.
Sure.
It's not at all. So like it's 20 kids. And they all have the right to contact their donor. Typically, it's like open ID at the age of like 18. The donor can't reach out to the kids.
Okay.
Now, like, let's say maybe the donor, when the donor conceived child is like 5 years old and maybe they have a heart attack and they need to get that information to the kid.
Sure.
They can contact the clinic and the clinic absolutely will get that. But it is up to the child when they are at the age of 18 if they want to contact the donor. And some donor conceived children have no interest in contacting their donor. And
Sure.
and that's their right, but that's the distinction. It needs to be the donor conceived child's choice.
Interesting. Okay.
But having that open availability and that contact makes it so much safer because you're able to give updated health information, which
Sure.
literally can be life-saving.
Yeah. That's a good point. I guess I'm trying to think of it from the like non-anonymous donor perspective, because I do believe you that just as many people would want to donate.
It's
like
it's gonna be
mentally,
different people.
psychologically for that person, like that must be a trip to like know, okay, here 10 people have my genetics.
Mm-hmm.
They may or may not reach out. I don't know what they're gonna want. I don't know what kind of relationship that seems like a lot to just be waiting on, where you're like, well, 18 years, like let's see what happens.
Yeah. It's a big thing, and but that's the thing about it is it should have that weight. Clinics have spent the last few decades trying really hard to have donors not actually think about the implications. They really are being like, but you get $1,800 a month, but you get $1,800 a month. The posters that say literal jerk off and pay for spring break. They don't want you to think about the fact that you are selling your genetic material to make a sentient human being.
True.
They don't want you to think about the fact that, you're going to have 100 biological children.
Yeah.
They don't want you to think about the fact that you will have children out there. You will. And what ends up happening is, and they specifically target college-age students.
Yeah.
Specifically for that purpose. So they shine like spring break, beer money, and material objects to be like, hey, pay off your student loan debt by giving us your genetic material, ha ha ha. And then what ends up happening is the college student donates, and then 20 years later, they have their own, and I've spoken to donors about this, 20 years later, they have their own kids, they have their own family, and then they realize, holy shit, I have other kids out there.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, what have I done? That realization, that weight, they realize it later on anyway.
Okay.
So it's better to deal with it when you're donating, to make that informed choice, to be like, okay, I really want to take this responsibility on, versus realizing it when you're 50 years old, you have kids, you have a wife that now you have to break it to, because typically donors don't tell their partner until you have donor conceived people knocking on their door saying like, hey, can I have my medical history?
Yeah, that'd be a wild thing to learn about your partner at that age.
But there are so many people also nowadays who are like, I don't want to have my own children. Mm-hmm. Okay, totally cool. And so for them, they're like, how about I just donate some of my genetic material? Y'all can have it. And just you guys fucking raise the kids, and I'm available to like give medical history to, say hi to if they have questions.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
Sure.
It's completely, what has been normalized so the infertility industry has been able to get away with shady shit. Anonymity only protects the infertility industry. It does not protect donors.
That makes sense. This was fascinating. You got to go to a show.
I gotta go to a show.
Where can people find you? So like your social media, where they could find your stuff, your shows, all that? And then where can they find information on this? Like if anyone's listening that is a donor conceived person, give us everything.
Okay, so if you want to like hear more of my videos or like you can check out my TikTok, my Instagram. It's all at Laura High Five and 5 like the number 5. If you want to come see me do stand up, my Instagram I always post shows, but you can also check out my website www.laurahighfive.com. 5 is spelled out there. It has my list of shows.
Okay.
I always I do get last minute shows and I always post them on my Instagram. So definitely always check there. If you are donor conceived and you want more information, you need some help, definitely follow Donor Conceived Council on Instagram. Go to wearedonorconceived.com. If you are looking for like support groups and help, there is the Donor Conceived support group. That also you can find them on Instagram very easily. It's a DCC. And you also, if you need help, there is Right to Know is great. If you need help finding family members, or you can do DNA Angels. They are a great nonprofit who will absolutely help you out. But I cannot encourage you enough to go get your DNA tested from 23andMe and Ancestry. I know a lot of people are like, but I don't want to sell my information to a fucking private...
Yeah, it's fun.
I will tell you, a private company already has your genetic material. That's the infertility.
It's a good point.
So if you are that's the thing. If you are a donor... You literally sold your fucking sperm and eggs to a private industry. They already fucking have it, losers. Mm-hmm. Can I say? I'm sorry, that was aggressive.
Sure.
You're a loser when you argue with me about this one.
True.
Like it's like think about it. Like you literally sold your fucking sperm to a private corporation, and now you're like, but I don't want to spit in a tube. Fuck off! Like you already did it. Like get a grip.
That is a very good point.
And so for donor conceived people, a private industry already has your fucking DNA. They already have your biological parents' DNA. Like it's already there. So at least get information that is helpful to you, which is knowing who your family members are. Because if you can find your siblings, find your donor, then you can also start collecting medical information that could literally save your fucking life. So yeah.
Get on it, losers.
Get on it, losers.
You fucking heard it here first.
I do remember, like, I am a stand-up comic first, so, I mean, I do advocacy, but, like, I'm also I will always end shit with a fucking mean-ass punchline,
Good.
So, fucking losers.
Love it. Follow me at Corey T Comedy on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Come to Ope, a comedy show in the East Village every single Thursday.
It's a great show. It's a great
Laura's
venue.
been on it before. She'll definitely be on it again.
Hopefully, because I sucked the first time.
No, you were great. Shut the fuck up.
He's lying. I was not great.
Don't be a loser. So for you in New York, come to my show. Come to one of Laura's shows. Laura, this was awesome. Let's do it again. Either on this, if there's like some development, we'll have you back on. Or if you got another topic, like always happy to have you on.
Beanie Babies?
Great.